All right, Darren Smith rolling right along here with you on a Tuesday afternoon. Of course, tomorrow night, 8:30 at VA Haas. It is honestly one of my favorite things in college sports. It's senior night, senior day, senior night. If it's college football, it's senior day. Tomorrow's going to be senior night. The Aztecs are taking on Air Force. Oh, by the way, that game is kind of a big deal. This is the final week of regular season activity for the Mountain West Conference, and joining us now, as he does each and every week, is Brian Dutcher. He's the associate head coach, the head coach in waiting of the Aztecs, who joins us via the Western Exterminator hotline. Coach, good to talk to you. Thank you for the time.
Great to be back with you, Darren.
You know, I do, as somebody who prefers college sports, so I know it's not everybody's preference, but I prefer the college game, college football, college basketball to professional sports. One of the reasons I do is because of nights like tomorrow night. You've been around a lot of these situations. Senior night, I mean, what's it like for a coach to go through that and honor all these different players that you guys will tomorrow?
You know, you blink your eyes and their career's over, and the players feel that way. They can't believe where the time has gone, and as coaches, we feel that way. It's like Chase Tapley and James Rahan and Deshaun Stevens, in a blink of an eye, their careers are over, and they're playing their last Aztec home game, and it's kind of a happy night to reflect on what they've done, but it's sad to see such great people and great players move on.
How emotional is it for the players?
You know, I think it's a pretty emotional moment. You go out there, you're usually arm in arm with your parents, and Coach Fisher standing at the end, he hands you a framed jersey, and it's kind of like, wow, where has it all gone? It feels like I just walked in the door as a freshman. And I think they've got to be choked up at some level.
You guys, there are three players that you mentioned there in Tapley, Rahan, and Stevens who will be honored tomorrow night. And there are three other players who are going to be honored whose names, frankly, we don't talk a lot about on the radio. You don't see their names in print a lot. But can you tell us a little bit about what the other players who will be introduced tomorrow night and recognized tomorrow night, what they've done for your program?
Absolutely. It's the guys that were not here on scholarship, the Jeremy Castleberries, the Aaron Douglas, and guys like that come in the door and they come up the hard way. They got to get into school on their own. When they get here, they got to go through a walk-on tryout and show that they're of value to the team. Nabe Ibrahimian, has been a great a representative of our program. And these guys are coming through and, you might say they come up the hard way where they weren't guaranteed a scholarship. They weren't guaranteed minutes. They weren't guaranteed a spot on a team. But here they are, as valuable to the team as most anybody we honor that night.
We're talking to Brian Dutcher, associate head coach at San Diego State. Aztecs and Air Force coming up tomorrow. The Aztecs will wrap up their regular season playing on the road at Boise coming up this weekend, which we'll talk about here in a moment. Well, that should be a great night tomorrow night, and good for those kids all to get honored in front of everybody else. And I'm told, by the way, there are a handful of tickets available if people want to go out and find them. Coach, looking to the action on the court here, you're coming down the home stretch. Is it hard to believe that here we are at the end of the regular season calendar?
Yeah, it's gone by in a hurry, but it's an absolute critical game for us. I hope the crowd gets out there. I mean, it's an 8:30 start. I hope they're not going to say it's too late, I'm not coming, because I got to work the next day. This is a chance to honor some great players that have put on that Aztec jersey. And I would say this, if you don't want to come, give those tickets away. We have to have a full building. We have to win this game against Air Force to have a little peace of mind going into the last game of Boise that we're secure in that tournament and playing our best basketball.
When you think about it, tomorrow night, 8:30 start, as a coach, I know it's not the ideal situation here, but is it just part of the deal? I mean, that's what the price is if you want to be on television, I suppose.
Absolutely. Nobody wants to start that late, but we also recognize the importance of getting our brand out there on TV and having people around the country to be able to see the Aztecs on the floor, and that helps us in every other regard as far as attracting not only basketball players but students to this university, to San Diego State University.
Is there any difference between the style of play between a 7 o'clock game and an 8:30 game?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, I think it favors the home team.
Right.
I like that. I think to sit around all day as Air Force and wait to play, plus they're dealing with a time change. They're playing, 9:30 their time. I think it's an advantage to the home team to make that visiting team sit in the hotel all day. So I would like to think it's an advantage for us.
We're talking to Brian Dutcher, some San Diego State associate head coach, San Diego sports leader. It's the Mighty 10-9. You hear this phrase a lot this time of year, Coach, and it's commonplace in football, baseball, and every other sport on the planet. You want to be playing your best basketball, baseball, football, whatever, at this time of the year, getting into the conference tournament, getting into the NCAA tournament, hopefully for you guys. From a coaching perspective, is there any strategy behind wanting to play your best basketball at this time of the season?
A lot of times it's because of that conference tournament. Teams that have, struggled early in the year, they're saying, instead of them saying, hey, we're out of any NCAA consideration, they're like, if we can just play our best basketball at the end of the year, we can win 3 games and go to the NCAA tournament. So it's for those teams that maybe have struggled early, had some uncharacteristic losses. They still have hope that if they play well at the end, they can win 3 games in 4 days and make it to the NCAAs. And I think that's a great benefit to say, let's peak at the right time.
But is there anything you could do as a coach to help that, to help your players start playing their best brand of basketball at this time of the year?
I think from a practice standpoint, Darren, it's obviously, from playing an entire season what your weaknesses are, and you continue to work on those. You try to find your best rotations, who needs to be in at what time of the game. And then you try to say, how can we save legs? We know we need to get better, but sometimes fresh legs are as important as anything. And maybe it's what I don't do on the floor that'll get us ready for that last week or 2 of the season. So it's a little bit of all of that. And as coaches, we juggle to figure out what's the best routine to have our team playing at its absolute best this time of the year.
Is there an argument to be made that Jamaal Franklin could be the Mountain West Conference Player of the Year?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, his numbers are good. I think he's in the top 2 or 3 in scoring, top 2 or 3 in rebounding. But a lot of times the Conference Player of the Year goes to the person that's led his team to a conference championship. And that's how I kind of always felt. So I think Jamaal rightly deserved it last year. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it this year. But when you look at what New Mexico's done, obviously they've got fine players too, and UNLV and Colorado State. And so I think you can make an argument for any number of players on those teams that could have a chance at that honor.
We talked a little bit about the 6 players who will be recognized tomorrow night as part of Senior Night. Do you have any sense one way or the other about the future of Jamaal Franklin? I mean, because this potentially could be his final home game as well.
It absolutely could be. With the success he's had on the floor and the interest he's drawn from the professional ranks, he'll have some choices to make at the end of the season, and he'll sit with Coach Fisher at that time. But we're not naive to the fact that if he plays well and continues to do what he's done, he'll have opportunities, whether it's going to be at the end of this year or at the end of his senior year. That will be something that will be discussed when our season ends.
Do you have a gut feeling one way or the other about him?
I know he wants to be a professional basketball player, like many of them do that come to this program, and he's done enough to put himself in that conversation. So it's hard for me to say what he should or shouldn't do. It's all based on someone else's feedback. It's based on the people that have come here and seen him play, and Coach Fisher will get a feel for that when our season's over, where they feel he stands as far as a draftable player at the NBA level. So that's there's still miles to go on that. Sometimes people make a career in 3 or 4 days in a conference tournament or a 2 to 3 week run in the NCAA tournament. That's where your stock can rise and fall. So to say that decision's close to being made is probably a little bit premature right now.
Coach, this should be a really interesting week, the final week of Mountain West Conference regular season play before you all go out to Vegas there. I mean, you guys could finish anywhere on this scale. I think the only thing we know about the conference that is New Mexico is going to be the 1 seed, but as it stands right now, how much scoreboard watching are you going to do this week, given the fact that it seems like spots 2 through 6 are totally up for grabs?
Absolutely. And the amazing numbers, Darren, is the top 6 teams in the league, New Mexico, Colorado State, UNLV, Boise, San Diego State, and Air Force, are combined 84-7 at home this year. And then in the conference, they're 38-4. So there's only 4 home losses amongst those 6 teams. So that this conference is just going to be tough all the way to the last game when we have to go to Boise, when Boise goes to Air Force, when New Mexico goes to Air Force. I mean, there's games that are going to be a challenge for everybody in the last weekend. And so nothing is given other than the fact New Mexico is going to win the title. Now, whether they win their last game at Air Force, that remains to be seen. But there's a lot of play for all the teams in that upper 6 spots.
Coach, last thing before we let you go, and it would just be about the sport as a whole. Any thoughts on Gonzaga being named or voted as the #1 school in the country this week?
I think it's well deserved. I mean, the only argument would be is that the West Coast Conference, even though there are a lot of fine teams in it, is probably not as strong top to bottom. So maybe the overall strength of what they've done during the conference season might not measure up to some of the harder conferences. But that being said, they've had to win every game that's been put in front of them, and they've done it. They've won at places that we know are tough, like at BYU, at St. Mary's. And so they've got some really, really quality wins in there. So I think they're deserving of the ranking. And the nice thing about basketball, it's not football. In the end, the top teams make the tournament, and in the end, the championship will be decided on the floor. It will be very clear who the best team in the conference in the country is.
Well, Coach, a great night tomorrow night coming up at Viejas. Thank you as always for the time. Enjoy senior night. Best of luck this week, and we will talk to you next week in anticipation of the Mountain West Conference tournament. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, Darren.